Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This video is a continuation of our Windows Server Home Lab series in Azure. So in this video we will be setting up the file services and file sharing in our Active Directory Home Lab. This is the 5th video in the series. So in this video we are going to be setting up file sharing on the Windows Server. We are also going to be talking about what network sharing is, the different types of permissions, and implementing file services resource manager in order to manage all our network shares. Then I'm going to show you guys a hands-on lab that you can do to practice all of these skills. So file and folder sharing is just making all these resources viewable for all users in the company to make editing, sharing files, modifying easier in your work environment. And just a quick review on the concepts in file sharing. We have two types of network sharing. We have the local and network sharing. We also have different types of permission and access control, read, write, execute, and full control. And we have two types of permissions, which is important to understand what these are, to implement it better and apply it better on your environment. We have what we call NTFS and share permissions, and we have two types of sharing methods. We have mapped, which I'll be showing you guys later. We have mapped and network. Okay, just a quick review on the types of permissions we just mentioned earlier. We have the NTFS and the shared permissions. So when you're sharing folders, you can set up these two types of permissions. So I'm just going to give a quick overview on what the difference is. These two types of permissions are so on the left side is the permissions for shared, and the one on the right is the NTFS. So if you can look into the two permissions, the difference is, you can see that are quite obvious, is more permissions on the NTFS than shared, which is only 3 for shared, and it's more detailed for permissions in the NTFS. And the main difference between these two is permissions for shared are permissions that you can set on the folder level only. So the permissions on the shared are only applied on the folder level, so it's not applied or set on the subfolders and the files under the folder, while the NTFS is set for everything and also under that folder. It's file and folder level. So first we are going to set up our file services, and the first activity is to set up a file sharing. We have to configure file sharing, create a shared folder with the appropriate permission, and the next activity is to set NTFS and share permissions to allow domain user access. We are going to see the difference between the NTFS and share permissions once we set up file sharing for our folder that we created. I am going to my server and open File Explorer and go to my C drive and create a new folder called shared, and I'm going to click on my shared folder and go to properties. As you can see, there are different tabs. We are going to set up shared permissions first. Then after that we are going to do the NTFS permissions. And just to simplify this, shared is basically like a general permissions access. It applies on the folder level, and if you want more details like particular folders or files, you can do an NTFS permissions. Okay, so I'm going to click on the sharings tab and then click on the advanced sharing. I'm gonna check share this folder to be able to share it over the network. If you click on the permissions at the bottom left, this is the permissions for shared, and this is where we can configure it. For now, I'll give permission to all the domain users for our environment company. So this is accessible by everyone in the company, our domain in here. what I'm going to do is click on add, and I'm gonna just type in domain and check name. And as you can see, there are different choices in here. You can add different stuff in here, add domain admins, computers, domain controllers, domain guests, and domain users. For now, I'm just going to select domain users. That's what we want because that is where everyone is in the network. As you can see, it says everyone, and I'm going to leave this in read only because it is what I want for now. So everyone that is a domain user can open this folder that's called shared. So I'm going to click on apply. Okay, so that is how you can set up the shared permissions. And I'm going to click on apply on this one and okay too. So if you want to implement the NTFS permissions, let's click on security, and this is where you can see more detailed permissions. You can see more groups and usernames. You can also do a lot of things, detailed things in here. You can give permissions to groups. You can give permissions to one user. For example, your company president is asking you to give him access to a certain folder or a file just for a certain time frame. You can just do that by just adding that person here and giving him a set of permissions that he needs. So this is where you can do a lot more configurations, and we are going to keep it simple for now for this example. So I have added the users in here. This is the domain users. You can add more permissions in here. For example, this is like allow full control, for example, but for now we are just gonna leave it like this. I just wanted to show you how to set this up. So I'm just gonna click on close for now, and now we have a shared folder. So for our next activity, we are going to test if we can get to the shared folder from the client machines. Let's say, for example, a user wants to access something on the network. We are going to try and set up a client machine and test if the folder we just created is accessible. Now, these are the tasks we are going to do. I am going to RDP into my client machine now and try to map my network drive to access shared folders. I'm going to open my file explorer and right click on this PC and select map a network drive, and I'm going to type the path to my shared folder, which is going to be the server name and the name of the folder. Just type in // your server name / your shared folder name and uncheck the reconnect at sign in. You don't want to reconnect after signing in. Just make sure that the typo and everything is correct and click on finish. And that is how you can map a network drive for one of your client machines. But there's a problem with this method. This is one way or one method you can file share, and as we mentioned, there are two sharing methods, which is network and mapped. So this is the first method, which is mapping a network drive. So the problem with this is that if we reboot this machine and open our file explorer and go to this PC, we can see that the network drive we mapped earlier is no longer visible. That is because what we did earlier is not persistent and does not keep the settings once we reboot. But if you want it to be automated and use it for daily uses, you can use the network sharing method. So this is a more automated and a better use to set up network sharing. This is a more efficient way in how you can manage also how users can access shared resources. So what you're going to do for this task is to set up a GPO to automatically map network drives for users. So you should be able to create GPOs now and understand what GPOs are. Okay, to get started with our activity, I'm going to open the Group Policy Manager GPMC console. What I'm going to do is right click on Group Policy Objects. In here, to create a new GPO that will be naming mapped drives. And once it's created, I'm going to click on it and click on Edit, and I'm going to select User Configuration, and I'm going to select Preference Settings. I'm going to click on Preferences and expand Preferences. Under Windows Settings, you can see that there's Drive Mapping. I'm going to select Drive Mapping and then right click on it and click on New and select Mapped Drive. So this is where you're going to type in the shared folder name. So this is going to be the path to your shared folder. This is the same on how you mapped the shared folder earlier, and make sure the typo is correct. Double backslash the name of your server, backslash the path of your folder. I'm going to label this as shared, and the drive letter is F, and I'm going to leave everything to the defaults and click on apply. And as you can see in here, this is where your path should be now that you have created the GPO for mapped drives. I am going to apply and test it. So the next thing is I'm just gonna drag and drop this to the users because it's the users we want to apply this to. And I'm going to link this and click on OK. And when I click on users, I'm going to see drive mapping in here. And before we start testing if this works, I'm going to open my CLI and type in gp update /force, and the computer policy update has completed. So I'm going to switch back to my client machine, and I'm going to open File Explorer and click on this PC. Under network locations, I have my two shared drives, one for the sales department. And let's move on to our next activity, which is to implement quotas and file screening using File Server Resource Manager, FSRM. So we're going to be using this tool, FSRM, to configure Qouta templates and file screening templates to manage our file storage, like our shared drive earlier. So before we start with our lab, I'm going to explain what FRSM is, File Server Resource Manager. So this is part of the Microsoft admin suite of tools that helps you manage and classify data stored on file servers and shared folders. So if you're working in IT and you're admins, of course it's more efficient if you can set up limits to what our shared folders can store, so that users can have a limit on what they can save in the shared folders. Because if we are managing our own servers, of course our storage is not unlimited. Of course, in our servers we have a maximum amount of storage, for example like 60 terabyte for the whole company. And over the years, if we don't manage shared folders efficiently, of course those folders will get full, and if they get full, we will no longer be able to save files. So it's good practice to be able to manage them and get notified once it's almost full, and we can tell people to clean up their files because it's more expensive to buy more hardware for more storage. Okay, so let's get started with the hands-on lab, and I'm going to open my server manager dashboard. I can either click on add roles and features under configure this local server, or click on manage and select add roles and features, and I'm going to skip everything and go to server roles since I've already set up my Active Directory. And as you can see, file and storage services is checked, and I've installed 2 out of 12 features. So if I expand this panel, we can see more file and storage services features, and I'm going to click on file and ISCSI services, and I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to only select the file services resource manager and click on add feature, and I'm going to click on next and next until I get to the install, and I'm going to wait for it to install this feature. And once it is installed, I'm going to restart my server, and on my server, on the bottom left on my search bar, I'm going to type in file server resource manager, and as you can see, this is where we are going to configure our settings. So these are the different settings that we can configure: Qouta management, file screening management, storage reports management, classification management, and file management tasks. So let's get started with the Qouta management first. This is where you can set up the maximum amount of data your folder limit is gonna be. So for example, the shared folder we just created, we can set this to like 10 gig maximum of data, and it's really good practice to set up quotas for each folder so that the users can't just keep on filling up their folders, because our storage, once again, is not unlimited. We can reach the maximum, and it's really expensive to buy more hardware. If this keep on happening each year, it's better to manage that. And this is where we can set up a threshold or notification. For example, our shared folder has reached 80% of its maximum. That is where IT and admins will get an email, for example, that it's at 80%. We can let the users know when to clean up their files before we even reach the limit. So to set up the Qouta management, let's just click on here. So you can see 2 different setups here, the quotas and quotas template. So the quotas is for more specific and detailed settings, and if you want more customization for it, so if you right click on this and create quota, this is where you can create a customized quota for your shared folder. So the quota path is where we are going to paste the shared folder path you want to apply this quota to. We are going to do this on our shared, so let's just find it. I'm just going to click on shared and click on OK, and I'm going to click on define custom quota properties because we want a more customized settings for this. So if you click on this, you can change the limit in here for how much you want the maximum to be, and you can put the description in here just to make it easy for IT and admins. And of course, it's also best practice to put the hard quota in here. Do not allow users to exceed limit, so it won't affect other folders storage as well. And this is where we can add the notification threshold we were talking about earlier. So you can click on add, and this is the percentage of the threshold. So typically at work we just do 80. It's safer, do that, and this is where you can send the email to the distro list, for example, for IT admins, and that is how you can set up for your shared folders. And for next activity, we are going to set up the file screening management, and let's just expand this. Same as Qouta management, there are different settings: file screens, file screen templates, file groups. So file screen management, basically it's controlling what file types you can allow in the shared folder. And examples of file types are documents, text files, video files, audio files, pictures. Sometimes we want to restrict file types like videos, audios, pictures on certain folders because they really get heavy on storage, and that can fill up our shared folder storage easily because they have a bigger size in storage than documents. So as much as possible, we don't want users to be saving videos, for example, and just restrict those multimedia type of files. So this is how we can do it through file screening management. I'm going to click on file screens and select create a file screen, and under file screen path I'm going to click on browse and select the shared folder in the C drive, and this is the path to our shared folder. And under how do you want to configure the file screen properties, I'm going to select derive properties from the file screen template. So if you want to block multimedia files, you can click on derive properties from the file screen template, and it says block audio and video files. And if you want to block more file types other than multimedia files, video and audio files, you can click on define custom file screen properties. So let's click on derive properties, and you can click on the drop down, and you have option to block audio and video files, block executable files, block image files, block email files, monitor executable and system files. But if you want to restrict more, for example, in our shared folder we want text and document file types, I'm going to click on custom properties because we can select more than just the audio and video files. I'm going to click on audio files, compressed files, executable files, image files, and web page files as well. And these are the ones we are restricting. And I'm going to click on OK and then create, and the template name is going to be shared, and click on OK, and we have created the file screening under shared. And that's how you create file screening and Qouta management. And that's it for the video. Thank you.